Thank you again for having us. It's a pleasure to meet you all here. And yes, we definitely can perfectly just continue what Isat said, because we will now talk about the taxation and tokenization of crypto assets. So, but before, shortly to myself, I'm a certified tax consultant for cryptocurrencies. I studied taxation law about 10 years ago and worked also as Isat for EY for around 4 years and was specialized in international taxation law and now combine it with my knowledge about cryptocurrency taxation. And I'm self-employed since 8 months, and I'm also a digital nomad and living everywhere, and just came from Cyprus to speak here. So awesome to have you here. Matthias?
Short words to me. I'm also a tax consultant. I'm the teacher of the German Chamber of Tax Advisors and the Tax Advisors Association. So I teach about 5,000 tax advisors and tax professionals in crypto matters since 2020 and 27, I think. And I have a chat robot for crypto taxes. So I think most tax advisors in Germany don't know much about taxes, and most people in Germany also not know much about taxes, and that's why we had a big problem, because most are taxed without any knowledge, and they are like a little child. They trust in the best and pay much.
Yes, and so that you won't do the same mistake, we're here to give you a better overview what has to be taken into account. So first of all, it's very important to always differentiate between you as an individual, private person, and you in a commercial business way. So even if you are just self-employed or if you have a company. So from a taxation point of view, the cryptocurrency that you receive or that you hold as a private person gets taxed completely different than if you do it in a commercial field. So this is always the very first part where you have to start and ask yourself, where am I? So, and if you're a private person, just buying Bitcoin, for example, and holding it, then this 1 year holding period comes into place. And I think probably most of the people in Germany know about this 1 year holding period, but they don't know exactly when it really applies. So they just think, I get staking rewards, this will apply. I hold something, this will apply. I do futures, this will apply. But it's not like that. So even though you're in that private sector, you always also have to differentiate in which part of the taxation law you are and what you are exactly doing within the crypto asset field. So first part is also where Isat differentiated between the capital gains tax, and we in Germany also have the private sales transaction tax. So this is something completely different, because if you hold Bitcoin less than a year and sell it, then it's a private transaction. So you get taxed with your personal tax rate that can get up to 45%. But if you do, for example, something with futures, this applies to the capital gains tax, which is just around 25%. So it's complicated, let's say it like that, and you definitely should know where to have a look at. Also, this 1 year is really a year, not 365 days. For example, this year we have a leap year, so 366 days. So if you sell your Bitcoin within 365 days, you have to pay maybe 45% taxes on it, just because you forgot that it's 1 year and not the days. So as you can see, it's quite important to know every single specific rule that applies in every single specific field. And this is just because this is just for the field of your personal holding things and transactions. So another bunch of rules apply when you're in a commercial business case. And this is also just for the payment token. As we heard before, there are also that kind of utility and security token who has to be separated and separate. We have to have a separate look on it if it is a payment token, utility token, or security token. As we heard, it's not that easy to differentiate between those. So, most importantly, the taxation law applies on the definition within the rules. So, if you call something a utility token, but from the definition, from the taxation point of view, it's a security token, it will get taxed as a security token. So it doesn't help you if someone writes, yeah, it's definitely a utility token, but the rule would say, no, it is classified, or it should be classified as a security token. So also there, you need a lot of knowledge and a lot of very specific, deeper look into that rule system to get to know how you will get taxed in the very end. And then we have this very special thing about non-fungible token. So now I was most of the time just talking about fungible token, but we also have non-fungible token as shortly NFTs. In Germany, it's quite interesting how the authorities dealing with that, because they don't call it like specifically, okay, other rules will apply for that. But if you have a deeper look into it, it's quite different to have a look at it if you deal with NFTs. So there is not just your personal income that gets taxed, but also you have to take VAT into account, for example, etc. And there we come to this tokenization of, for example, real estate thing, where you usually use NFTs, so as smart contracts, who give you or who convey a specific right or a reference to a specific right in this context, and so that you are able to tokenize this ownership of this specific real estate, for example. But the legal problem is then that the ownership itself doesn't necessarily fits together with this documentation of the ownership via this NFT. So it could be that you have the ownership in the real world of this real estate, for example, but on the other hand have this NFT who says, okay, you are the owner. But if someone doesn't know that this NFT exists and sells buy this real estate in the real world from you, you keep your NFT and sell a part of this real estate to another one, then the legal question is, okay, whose real estate is it now? Yours in the real world or yours with the NFT? And how can we solve that problem? So this is a huge legal problem right now with some solutions, but not perfectly solved right now. This is just the legal part. Then we haven't spoken about the taxation part. So this is why it's not that easy to just tokenize everything and go through and say, okay, yeah, it's like this now, because we have to combine those two worlds in a way. And this is also another part of thinking about, okay, how is the metaverse taxed? How do we tax property that we buy in the metaverse? Can we tax it at all? Is it taxed with VAT? Is it just taxed with income tax rate? How do we do it? Because usually there we have a lot of NFTs. And then also this specific rules from our real world in the taxation field, do they really apply to those within the metaverse? Can we say, okay, if you sell 5 properties within 3 years, is it commercial then? like it would be when we would do it in the real world? Or do we have to tax it differently? And where is the small line? And here, Matthias will talk about more the specific rules in this regard.
Thank you, Tami. Okay, if you imagine you are in the metaverse and you are the owner of a property. In real life, you would say, I'm the owner, and you are written in books. Now you are in the metaverse. You bought with the cryptocurrencies and sold something for property. And now you are the virtual owner. Do you like to pay real estate tax? If yes, why? If not, why not? So we have no rules for it. If you imagine decentralized land, you are the owner of property and you are the renter. Do you have to pay VAT or not? Why it's necessary to think about it. It's not a property like this. It's virtual property. So you are the owner of some virtual assets, and in taxations, in VAT, we have no rules for this, no special rules. That's why in the subjects, you are the owner of a property, what's the ground, soil, whatever you call it, and then you have the problem, if you are the renter, you have to pay VAT to your government. But now your next problem is, who is the renter? You are the renter and someone rented by you. Where's he coming from? You like to write an invoice. And now I say, okay, Hector, he's not, now he's in the EU, but he's not coming from the EU. Maybe he's buying this from his home. So he's not under the European VAT law. So do I know that he is a renter of my property in Metaverse? Usually not. There's a smart contract. The smart contract is interacting between two parties. I don't know. Maybe he's from France, then I have to pay VAT in France. Maybe he's from Germany, then I have to pay VAT in Germany. Maybe he's from the United States, no VAT, okay, that works. But now the problem is, Hector is now moving to France. I don't know. He's paying rent 20 euro each month. I paid VAT with an invoice in Germany. And now France is coming and say, wow, that's nice. I like VAT too. And then you have a problem. You have to pay twice. And then you have to prove to the German fiscal authority that you have a problem with the French people who's getting some problems with his fiscal authority, and that's why they ought the VAT from me. So we need rules, we need standards, how it works. And the biggest problem, or for me the biggest problem with all NFTs ever is, there is a VAT topic, and that's I like to make deep in your mind. Everything with NFT in Europe has to come in with VAT. There's ever a VAT topic coming smart again. And if you imagine that you never know on a smart contract who is the other part, you can ever have a VAT topic in all countries. Sometimes it's 20%, sometimes 15%, but you don't know. And if they write to you, so you have additional fees. And for 20 euros to deal with an foreign fiscal authority, maybe Poland, then they say, okay, you get a tax number, that means you have to deposit 8,000 euro. Okay, 8,000 euro to get a tax number? I don't understand it. If you like to go to Italy and you apply for a tax number, that means usually it takes 1 year, you need a lawyer for it, and you pay about 2,000 euro for that. So it's not a little problem, it's a big problem if you have this with all countries. Okay, I had a timer, that's why I was really amazing, because he's going up and down. Okay, sorry, that's technique. Okay, just cut it. And so I think the first thing about Metaverse is ever to think about VAT. The second point is that Tami already explained, is if you are an individual, if you are taxed with your income tax as a private people, or as a commercial income, when does it switch? In Germany, it switches when you maybe earn more than 8,000 euro, maybe more than 5,000 euro, maybe more than 1,000, maybe more than 100,000. Nobody knows. Each case is separate. We have some rules we can figure out and say, okay, maybe like that. But if you don't like it, you have to go to court. So you have extra fees, and maybe you dislike it. Maybe you like it to fight for Kurt, but most people don't like. And that's why we need rules. And in our workshop, we talk also about that we need rules in all Europe. We don't need the same tax. But you see, there was mining, staking, lending, airdrops, maybe a little bit DeFi. That's not that much. But most governments are restrict any rules for that. Austria maybe is better, Australia is good, New Zealand is good, and Germany says, yes, we have some little tiny ideas, and we write it in the paper, most are wrong, some are good, some are bad, but we have no rules at the end. So you have to go to Kurt, and that's why we are maybe at the Kurt and say, why is lending not taxed as for agent currency, and the interests are taxed as for agent currency interests? What's the difference if it's e-money? And that's why I apply to all of you, never forget about taxes first when you go on a project. Usually, most people don't think about accounting, they don't think about invoicing, they think first we have to start the project. And then there's a tax matter, and the tax lawyer came to your clients and say, I'm sorry, I could not deal with it, and that's a deal breaker. If the tax guys not understand in Germany, usually it's a rule breaker, and you have a deal, you have all professionals with maybe building a house and something like that, but you don't have a model what fits in the tax. And that's why usually it's necessary to think about it. I think it's not the most main thing, but 50% taxes I pay myself. That's why I think it's necessary to think about to pay less taxes. And one last point on this, if you are in the metaverse and you are taxed with VAT, then you might think, okay, you have to pay the VAT when you receive the rent in cryptocurrencies. For income tax in Germany, that's correct. But for VAT matters not. You are taxed when you exit the metaverse. So it's impossible for a German mind to understand why it's different in VAT and in income tax. And I think with this little doubt, I could end and go. We can go on with other things.
Yeah, so just to summarize again, so especially the very last part, like, okay, if you don't know nothing about the taxation of cryptocurrencies, it's really not smart from a strategic point of view to just jump into new projects without getting the help from people who know something about it. So I could really just recommend you to ask someone who knows something about it before you jump, especially in a bigger project, because the impact which it could have on your taxation is so big that it might end up in the thinking of, oh, I should have never even started it. So yeah, feel free to ask us.